growing like country road. For 25 years, John Denver was RCA's golden boy. Then they dropped him like he meant nothing. His ex-wives had already exposed his violent temper and chainsaw rampages. Even his drinking had cost him his pilot's license. By 1997, he couldn't legally fly anymore, but he kept going up anyway. The experimental plane that killed him had a fatal flaw. When investigators finally pieced it together, they found something darker. The crash was preventable. The warning signs were everywhere, but nobody listened. What really happened that day will shock you. John Denver was born as Henry John Dutzkondorf Jr. on December 31st, 1943. He was born in Roswell, New Mexico, into a family that loved flying. His father, Captain Henry Dutch Dutzkondorf, Sr., was a famous Air Force pilot who set 3 speed records in the B-58 Hustler bomber. Dutch was a hero in the military world and was even inducted into the Air Force Hall of Fame. But for young John, life wasn't easy. Being a military kid meant moving all the time. He lived in Arizona, Alabama, and Texas, never staying long enough to make real friends. Every time he began to feel settled, it was time to pack up and go again. This left him feeling lonely and like he didn't belong anywhere. That sense of not having a true home stayed with him forever. When John was 11 years old and living in Tucson, Arizona, his grandmother gave him a very special gift. It was an old Gibson guitar built in 1910, making it more than 40 years old. For a boy who felt uprooted most of his life, that guitar became something constant and real. Music gave him a way to say things he couldn't put into words. The sound of its strings comforted him. He also began singing with the Tucson, Arizona Boys chorus, where he learned to harmonize and perform on stage. Being part of this famous group gave him a sense of belonging that school never could. By high school, he was already playing folk songs at small gigs. Music was becoming more than a hobby. It was his way of making sense of his life. His father was a strict man, and their relationship was often tense. Dutch expected his son to excel in everything. John was more gentle and dreamed of writing songs, but they did share one big passion, flying. When John became a pilot himself, they finally grew closer. Flying together was a way for them to bond, though it was also risky. That risk would haunt John later in life, especially after his own fatal plane crash in 1997. Even so, that connection stayed with him, making its way into his songs about freedom and the endless skies. After high school, John enrolled at Texas Tech University to study architecture. But his heart wasn't in drawing blueprints. Deep down, he wanted to make music, so he left school and moved to Los Angeles. Around this time, he decided to take a new last name. He picked Denver after Colorado's capital because the state's mountains and rivers inspired him. It felt like a fresh start. In 1965, he got a huge break. Out of 250 singers who auditioned, he was picked to be the lead singer for the Chad Mitchell Trio. This was his first big chance in the music world. It put him in front of new audiences across the country and gave him the experience he needed to grow. He spent 2 years with the group and recorded 3 albums. On stage, he learned to sing with confidence. Offstage, he practiced writing his own songs. Touring was hard, but John soaked it all in. Slowly, he was finding his voice. One of the most famous songs he wrote during this time was Leaving on a Jet Plane. Peter, Paul, and Mary recorded it in 1967, and by 1969, it hit #1 on the Billboard charts. Suddenly, everyone was singing his words. Even though he wasn't yet a big solo star, this success showed that his songwriting mattered. When the Mitchell Trio ended, John didn't look back. He was already climbing the pop charts on his own. By the early 1970s, he was scoring hits one after another. That smooth jump from group singer to solo star was rare, but John made it look easy. John Denver's career took off in 1971 with the release of his breakthrough album, Poems, Prayers, and Promises. The standout track, Take Me Home, Country Roads, almost never became the anthem we all know. Early copies had sound problems, and for a moment it looked like the song might fail. But Denver's new manager, Jerry Winrobe, had other plans. He pushed the song hard on radio stations starting in Denver, Colorado. Released on April 12, 1971, it took a few months to catch on. By August 28th, it had climbed to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. It sold more than 1 million copies and went gold that same month. Over the years, it kept going strong. By 2017, it had sold more than 1.5 million digital copies in the U.S. Its influence even reached the state of West Virginia, which adopted it as an official state anthem in 2014. In 1972, Denver followed up with Rocky Mountain High, released in September that year. It was his 6th album and his first to reach the U.S. top 10. It peaked at number 4 on the Billboard 200. The title song became one of Denver's most famous tracks, reaching the Billboard Hot 100 top 10 in 1973. It was ranked number 29 on the year-end chart and is still loved by fans of the outdoors. The cover was shot at Slaughterhouse Falls in Aspen, Colorado, making it even more personal. Decades later, in 2007, Rocky Mountain High was adopted as one of Colorado's 2 official state songs. The years 1974 and 1975 were John Denver's most successful. In just 18 months, he scored 4 number 1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100. Sunshine on My Shoulders hit number 1 in March 1974, followed by Annie's Song in July 1974. Thank God I'm a Country Boy topped the charts in May 1975, and I'm Sorry followed in September 1975. These hits showed every side of his talent. Some were gentle and hopeful, like Sunshine on My Shoulders. Others, like Thank God I'm a Country Boy, were full of energy. Annie's Song, written in just 10 minutes for his wife, became a classic wedding song. Denver was everywhere at this point, on radio, on television, and in millions of living rooms. During this golden period, Denver also released 3 albums that all went to number 1. John Denver's greatest hits in 1973 was so successful it became RCA Records' best